So, it's been a lot of drama. Me and you have gone to blows. I cannot wait for this conversation. Do you take issue with Brian Kelly's comments, I wanted to be with the best?
You know me, so you know I don't take any issue with these comments. I wanted to be with the best. I'm glad he told the truth. I'm glad he told how he really felt. Because in this world, it's harder to tell the truth in today's society. It is. The world is making it harder for the truth to be heard. Now, let me clarify what I'm saying. It's not so much that the truth tellers are going away. It's just the people who are hearing the truth don't want to hear it like they used to want to hear it. I can tell that because I see how it's in my day-to-day life. I see how it is on social media. I see how it is in circles that I sometimes frequent. Like, the truth is hard. The truth is painful. What? The truth hurts. Now, today's world is about talking about pleasantries. Today's world is everyone hitting the like button. There ain't no hate button. There's no love button either. And that's what's lacking in these conversations is the truth, which will get you to a greater place than even just a like. So now you got a Brian Kelly who's been put into an impossible situation because now they're giving him a breakup scenario versus just him taking another job. Like, he just took another job, and everyone's trying to make this way heavier than it is. All I see from this is that his LinkedIn must be popping. This dude took another job, a promotion to a better situation. Case closed. Oh, but no, I'm hearing a lot of people saying, where's his integrity? How classless? How gutless? Will y'all stop? Will y'all shut up? I take you to this personal story, and I know you've been here, Acho, whether you've been the one who said these words or you're the one that's heard these words. You ever break up with somebody? You ever been broken up with? And it's this conversation in general. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so nice. You're so sweet. You're so amazing. I know everything's going to work out for you, but we have to break up. Now, if I'm the one hearing that, I'm eye rolling. You know why? If all that's true, why the hell are you leaving me? If I'm the one saying it, I'm eye rolling. You know why? Because all that can't be true or I wouldn't be leaving you. Thank you, Brian Kelly, for not just eye rolling, for actually just staring somebody in the eye, looking in the camera and saying, look, I went to where it was better. I went to the best situation. It's just that simple. So unless you want it fake, unless you don't want to deal with the truth, you don't want to deal with the painful, obvious, absolute truth, Brian Kelly said nothing that was offensive.
I have a huge issue with what Brian Kelly said, and here's why, Sel, and everybody should be able to digest this.
Let's go.
All things are permissible, but not all things are profitable.
Yeah.
So Brian Kelly, you can say it, but what did you gain by saying it? That's my first issue I have with Brian Kelly saying, I went to be with the best. Second issue I have, it's a lie. Now, let me break it down fundamentally for you.
Oh, wow.
Last year, LSU had 6 players drafted. Last year, Notre Dame had 9 players drafted. Last year, LSU had 5 players taken in the 3rd round or better. Last year, Notre Dame had 5 players taken in the 3rd round or better. Last year, LSU had 3 players taken in the 3rd round or better. Correction, 2 players taken in the 3rd round or better. This year, LSU has a surefire top pick, Derek Stingley, top 5. This year, Notre Dame has a surefire top 5 pick in Kyle Hamilton. Over the last 5 years, Notre Dame, they've had 5 recruiting classes in the top 15. LSU, they're looking at 4 recruiting. LSU's looking at 5 recruiting classes in the top 15. So, the grass ain't necessarily greener on the other side. The grass is fake. Okay?
It's turf?
It's turf.
I'm getting turf put in my face.
As I look at it, man, it's negligible.
It's not.
The difference between LSU and Notre Dame. Brian Kelly, you said you wanted to go play under the bright lights. Well, I can go back to 2016. I was watching Notre Dame play a game under the bright lights against the University of Texas. At the time, that broke every record for the most watched college football game on an opening weekend. Lights don't get no brighter, big dog. You were at the most watched game in college football history just in 2016. You put out more draft picks last year than LSU by a significant margin. You put out more top 3 round draft picks than LSU by a significant margin. You have the number 5 recruiting class next year and the number 2 recruiting class 2 years after that. Brian Kelly, maybe you didn't develop the players well enough. I went to Texas as a 3-star linebacker. We recruited 2 other linebackers in my class. I'm the only one that went to the league.
My dog.
And they were higher rated than me. It's not about me. It's about what do you do with the talent that you acquire. Because Brian Kelly, If I look at the recruiting rankings, 2017, 10, 2018, 10, 2019, 15, 2020, 18, 2021, 9, 2022, 5, 2023, number 2. Notre Dame got talent. So what you doing with the talent? Furthermore, y'all had draft picks, more draft picks than LSU had. Don't buy the hype. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't eat the gumbo.
No, don't eat the gumbo, especially if y'all broke up. No, I'm sorry.
Don't eat the gumbo. The fact of the matter is, not only were Brian Kelly's comments not profitable, his comments were actually inaccurate.
What? They were profitable. They were actually said as a return on investment because just tell me this. It wasn't profitable? Is he making more money at Notre Dame or is he making more money at LSU?
LSU, sir.
Oh, okay, profitable. Okay. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And it made sense and it made dollars for Brian Kelly to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, God. I'm sorry, Acho. So help me, your feelings. No. Forget that. That ain't what they say when you have to say that. Acho called my man a liar because he said what he said was a lie. What?
Accurate.
Who has the most wins in Notre Dame history?
Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly. Okay. And he's been there since 2010, correct? He had a top 20 recruiting class as I looked. Every year he was there. But every year he was there -2, LSU out-recruited him. Now, that would make me feel, with my ego, I know I'm a competitive dude. I'm like, they keep getting me? I wonder why. Maybe they're a better recruiter. Maybe they're in a better situation. Whatever it is, I'm going to find out. And he gave it his best run. He went out there and won more games than Notre Dame, restored the roar, restored whatever was lacking at Notre Dame before he got there. And now look, Acho, who's won the most championships between LSU and Notre Dame since, I don't know, 2000? Let's just start there. Who?
LSU.
Oh, okay. LSU. Alabama's won 6 since 2000. LSU's won 3. Let me look on this list. I'm going to find Notre Dame. Bear with me. I got to go back to 1988. 1988, Ice Cube was still in NWA in 1988. Acho was not on this planet in 1988. Last time Notre Dame, with the bright lights and everyone watching, saw them say, we're the best. He knows what's up. I'm the best coach this school has ever seen. That's not a slight to Lou Holtz. That's not a slight to Newt Rockne. It's just, I got the most wins. And I have 0 championships. You know why? Because as much as I am in a great situation, somebody's in a greater situation. They're playing with a loaded ball. They're playing in a different world, a different level. So what's wrong with a guy just wanting to get to that level?
So I just don't understand the how. Like, I understand why people think so, but we have tangible data.
Like what?
Truly, last year, Notre Dame, 3 second-round picks, Sal.
That doesn't help a coach, you know that, right?
Talent helps a coach.
No. That's prospect. Let's stop. Let me stop you here. People saw me go to the league as a second-round pick from Columbia, and immediately they thought I got 3 sacks a game. Everybody on my team in Buffalo was like, dog, you must have been destroying them dudes. You got picked in the second round from the Ivy League school, Columbia at that. I was like, dog, I had 6 sacks the whole year. I was talented, big, fast, strong, but this whole translation that since you got picked high, you were out there destroying everyone is not the conversation we're having. And if you want to have a real conversation, a real discussion, you split hairs. Who has more talent? Who has better classes? Who has more top prospects? LSU.
I will say this. How we draft in 2020 is vastly different than how we drafted in 97 and 98. Why do we know that? Because Baker Mayfield was not more potential-driven than Lamar Jackson. Baker Mayfield was just better at the time in college than Lamar Jackson.
Oh, that happened back when I played, too.
So potential we don't draft as much on now as we do just like, what have you done for me? We don't see a ton of Tom Brady's no more, big dog.
Hold on. We see DNs who have no sacks. I just saw one a year or 2 ago. But look at me, rangy, from Penn State. I forget your name. Sorry, bro. But the point is, rangy and all that. And he a freak in the league. Like, yeah, you got to still do that. I'm not even getting bogged down by that because if a gun to our head, who has more talent, LSU or Notre Dame? We ain't going to have that argument.
But the thing is, gun to our head is because we've been told that. But when I'm looking at it, Sal, if Notre Dame had the number 5 recruiting class in 2022 and the number 2 recruiting class in 2023, at a minimum, we can say you are getting higher talent than LSU was getting.
No, they just
now the question is, what were you going to do with it?
LSU just won a national championship. Let me pose this question to you the right way. Brian Kelly probably thinks no one's a better coach than him. And by the numbers, only Nick Saban has him beaten most wins, right? So Brian Kelly's sitting there looking at Ed Orgeron, and he's like, this dude just won a national championship. I don't know what he really feels about Ed Orgeron, but I'll be scared to ask him because he's going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But the point is, if he thinks he's on Ed Orgeron's level, why wouldn't he want to go where Ed Orgeron just won a national championship when Ed Orgeron was at USC? And it wasn't looking like he was a national championship coach, but he went to LSU, and all of a sudden it all made sense.
I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer.
You would do it too.
When Mack Brown went to Texas, people were like, man, what was Mack Brown's greatest recruit ever? So many people might say Vince Young. A lot of people might say Colt McCoy. Others might say Jamal Charles. Mack will tell you, my greatest recruit ever was convincing Ricky Williams to come back for his senior year.
Okay.
That was his greatest route, was convincing Ricky Williams, and whether it was a senior year or his redshirt junior year, was convincing Ricky Williams to come back one more year. That was my greatest recruit.
Yeah.
Ed Orgeron got a national championship because he convinced Joe Burrow, who was backing up Dwayne Haskins, to come over to Baton Rouge and be the starting quarterback. Brian Kelly, you could have done that. I'm not talking about Joe Burrow. You could have gone out there and got you a Joey B. You could have gone out there and got you a Cam Newton. That's the same way that Auburn got them a chip. Auburn was a 8-5 team with a freaking Cam Newton and a freaking Nick Fairley. So I'm saying that you could have got you a chip like Coach O. I don't know that Coach O is a better coach, but he's probably a better recruiter.
Yeah,
at least a better recruiter of players already in college. Yeah, that's obviously the reputation. I don't know about the X's and O's, and obviously Brian Kelly is a much more sustainable coach. Coach O won himself a chip, and boy, we ain't seen him since. So it's too negligible for you to say I want to be with the best. And why do I mean by negligible?
I don't get it. Yeah, please break this down.
Let me break it down.
I'm really struggling.
Truly, from 2017 up until the projections of 2023, Notre Dame has a higher recruiting class on average. So we're talking about the next 6 years, the last 3 and the next coming 3. Notre Dame has a higher recruiting class on average. If we want to talk about who Notre Dame puts into the NFL draft, they put in more drafted players in the last year. So how can you tell me that if you have higher rated players coming out of high school, and you have higher drafted players or more drafted players coming out of college, that LSU is the best when you are actually have better players coming out of high school and going into the NFL? That's where I'm like, it don't make sense.
I see the error of your ways.
Please, explain.
I think you put too much trust into the recruiting process rankings from high school to college, and too much trust in the draft process, which we know is flawed, right? It's 50-50 with the number 1 overall pick to tell you just how flawed the draft process is. If you redraft every year you've seen a draft, you would certainly change half of every round. Tom Brady's not pick 199. Like, we have exceptions, we have rules. The draft process is flawed, and also the recruiting process is flawed. First of all, I used to always know that from hello. How the hell y'all seeing all these high school players all around the world to now put the stigma or put the pressure or put the privilege on them saying you're number 1 in the class? None of them, they don't play each other like that. They are from big schools to small schools. And the number 1 prospect doesn't always turn out to be the number 1 guy. You can look at a Tua, you can look at a Josh Rosen, you can look at so many guys that were supposed to be the one, and then they become one of. All I'm saying is don't give me those as the indicators. Give me this. Where the chips at?
Okay, great.
Where the chips at? And look, my last point is this. Alabama has won 6 of the last 12. And if most people are like, that's amazing, and it is. But that means half the time they don't. But they still are in the conversation of the best. Notre Dame's not in that conversation. They're under that tier.
The problem I can't give you the conversation of where the chips at is because the conversation of winning championships is dependent upon the coach. So you can't say, Brian Kelly,
let's look.
You got to go to LSU because there are better players at LSU because LSU has won chips. And Brian Kelly, maybe you could have done more. Because, Sal, you can't tell me that every system that we actually can base an objective metric off of is flawed. The only
I didn't say every, I said 2.
The objective metric of high school, flawed.
You know that's flawed.
But everything is flawed. The only thing I can tell you that's not flawed is development. That's the only thing I know is not flawed. How are you as coaches developing your players? Brian Kelly, were you doing a good enough job of developing your players? Because if you
second most wins, I think so.
If he is getting the higher rated prospects to his university, then he should be able to do more with the prospects he's getting. Because if LSU is getting lower rated prospects to their university, then they're doing more with less, then what's the problem? Go ahead.
You tell me, if you have the second most wins and 0 championships, but you don't have the number 2 recruiting classes, then I'm obviously exceeding expectations. I'm actually doing better. Y'all not giving me number 2 prospects, but I'm also turning it into the second most wins. And then we can't get over a hump. Why? Because I can only go so far. I don't know. We're going to hit this again, but if you look at the programs that win the championships, is it about the coach or is it about the program or is it about the coach being at the right
Oh, we're going to tease this and come back?
Yeah, we got to come back.
All right, we're going to come back.